Voice and Data Awards in the past may be wondering about our new avatar, Cyber Media ICT Awards. Well, we believe that the convergence of IT and telecom is picking up seriously, and therefore it was natural that the two awards should also converge. As I speak, ladies and gentlemen, we have a closed-door meeting going on nearby in the hotel with a select group of leaders of ICT industry in conversation with our chief guest this evening, the Honorable Chief Minister of Gujarat, Mr. Narendra Modi, who will join us in just a few moments. Mr. Modi has agreed to spend some time with us this evening, despite his packed schedule, considering that you've got the BJP's National Executive and National Council meeting going on in Delhi to chalk out a strategy for the Lok Sabha elections. But tonight, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Modi is here to listen and share with us his views on technology. So please settle down. Those of you who are walking in now, may I remind you to kindly keep your mobile phones switched off. Those who are inside the hall, I hope you've done so already. If you can't switch off your phone, please keep it in the silent mode. And we will try and run this as close to our schedule as possible, because Mr. Modi has a very limited amount of time to spend with us. So we'll keep it as tight-knit as possible, and we can have the maximum time to spend with Mr. Modi. Well, with that out of the way, let's go on with the show. A quick reminder once again, for those who are joining us inside the hall, please keep your phones in the silent mode or switched off. Ladies and gentlemen, we are especially pleased at Cyber Media to welcome you to this very special evening celebrating special achievements in the Indian IT and communications industry. A very warm welcome to all of you, and I'd like to begin by inviting the CEO of Cyber Media, Mr. Hoshi Ghaswala, to please welcome all our very special guests this evening.
A very good evening. Can you hear me? Yeah. Very, very good evening to all of you on a warmish, it's not that it's just about 15 degrees. We had expected it to be 7 or 8 degrees. Thank you so much for taking the time out and coming here. As you all can imagine, I have limited time, but I was just thinking of something and I thought I'll share it with you all. TCS yesterday declared its quarterly results, which were in excess of $1 billion, which was some 5,134 or 5,137 crores. That's 5,000 times the size of the industry, the size of the industry was when we launched DataQuest in 1982. The IT industry was just about, actually less than 100 crores. I'll talk about the second brand that's a part of these awards, which is Voice and Data. When Voice and Data was launched in 1996, I remember we at Cyber Media, I was with the Bombay office. We took 8 years to get a connection. Those days it would take 8 years to actually get a telephone connection. Compare that to all members of the family now having telephones. At Cyber Media, we've got various brands, but these are the two brands that have put these awards together, the IT Man of the Year and the Telecom Man of the Year. We've been chronicling the growth, the challenges, the opportunities, and aiding this industry to grow across the last 30 years. We yet feel young. We will continue to do it. And we've got the next session, which I don't want to touch on what my colleague here, Prashanto, is going to touch upon on what are the challenges, opportunities that he's going to kind of take up in his session. And then Mr. Modi is going to tell us what's in it for the industry and what he plans to do. But I'd like to thank you all again for coming here. Thank you very much. And please have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hoshi. Ladies and gentlemen, traditionally the ICT Awards ceremony served as a summary of the performance of the industry, highlighting its key developments and recognizing and felicitating the achievers. To talk about that and also to look at the trends in 2014, we have with us the editorial advisor, Cyber Media, Mr. Prashanto Kumar Roy, who will also explain very briefly the Corporate Awards and DataQuest Awards jury selection process. Mr. Roy?
Thanks very much, Rini and Hoshi. It's obviously each year this is a special evening in the year for us. It's a little more special today since we have with us the likely prime ministerial candidate for the country up ahead, and I guess all of you are quite keen to listen to him and his plans and statements, and he's equally keen to listen to, and that's what he's doing right now in the other room, listening to some of the things which we've also been able to gather from a wider audience and have presented to him. So I thought I'd just start off with not the traditional summary of the last year, but a little look at what some of the things he's been saying, especially recently at this FICCI event in Gandhinagar a couple of days ago, which many of you may have seen, and it's kind of, the video has really gone around. But I'm not going to go through all of it, but what's interesting is that he's focused quite a bit, he's got into a fair bit of detail on, he seems to be very oriented toward detail and execution. And he's been saying this throughout, that, the power of small, it's not just a big vision, it's not enough to just say, this is the big idea and the big vision. We must execute. We must focus on building our strengths. So, for example, services and agriculture especially, he's mentioned. Now, manufacturing, he says, yes, manufacturing, there's no magic wand which is going to be there. So you have to build it up step by step. And he is put, and you may or may not agree with all of the points in the thing, but he's put as a candidate, as a clear starting candidate for manufacturing the low-cost phones that we import by the tens of millions from China usually. What will it take for us to start making those in the country? So it's an interesting, it's not really a plan at this stage, it's an outline, and keep in mind this was at a larger industry body, it was not IT specific, but a lot of interesting points on IT, including driving access to education and healthcare. Each place you'll see a focus on specific steps which are achievable. So I thought that was kind of interesting, and I'm sure you'll hear a lot more about this from him, and possibly a lot more focused on IT. So I'm going to jump into, again, not the complete year summary, which I usually do. For one thing, the last financial year is a little further back from us than it usually is when we do this in November or October or December even. But I will, of course, touch upon a little bit of the summary of what's happened in the previous financial year, but also in the context of what's happening now and a lot of the stuff that we've seen in terms of trends. So let's take a look at the broad picture to start with. Okay, we are still at about 10% of GDP, the ICT industry, which is information technology and communications, when you add it all up, and you remove some overlaps which are there. There's something like telecom software which is common to both, so you knock those off. IT, most of it, I don't know if you can see all of it there, but the orange and the red are the IT part, and the blues, light blue, dark blue, that's telecom. And IT is, of course, it's all exports. 2/3 of IT is still exports. Overall growth has been kind of, it's not, we were just discussing this outside among some friends, not the rosiest of years. But again, some things are looking up, and I think this is really about seeing where the opportunities lie and where the disruptions happening, on which side of the table are you. So I'm going to step into this a little more detail in both telecom and IT. So let's take a look at telecom to start with. Okay, so mobile phones. Okay, now that's at the core of just like for the tech industry, it's the PC numbers. So let me ask you, so how many people use mobile phones in the country? Anybody? 900 million, that's one answer. 700 million, okay. So, various answers in that space. Now, we've been really looking at this closely because, there's a lot of figures going around there. What is known as the subscriber data, okay, or let's say the subscriptions data. Subscribers are people, subscriptions are, their individual accounts, or SIM cards specifically. So 875 million, and there's been some ups and downs. There will be some downs because, inactive SIMs were removed and so on. I won't get into that. So the October 13 data says out of the 875 million, the VLR, the Visitor Location Register, which actually shows you what is the current active base, that is about 744 million. Now the question is, how many people are using more than one SIM? Okay, that gets you closer to the answer about how many people there are. And again, we don't really have very, very clear data. We've been using a very conservative figure. Okay, I'll come to that figure later. But if you see the dual SIM handset sales in the last 3 years, okay, in this last year, it's been at about 87%. So 87, almost every handset sold in India is dual SIM. Okay, now of course that's not strictly correct because some of the top-end ones which you hear more about, like the iPhone 5S and so on, they're not dual SIM. But in terms of numbers, 9 out of 10 handsets which are being sold now are dual SIM. Again, that doesn't mean everybody is using both those SIMs. If you go out and buy whatever random phone, you buy a Samsung Galaxy S4 Mini or something, you'll find it has 2 SIMs. You may or may not want that dual SIM capability. So going by this, the install base, because phones are really, they're changed every 2 to 3 years. Some people may extend it a bit more. But this does tell you that the install base is showing maybe half of the install base could be dual SIM handsets. This is again just pure handsets. So we've been using a fairly conservative figure of 15%. That's borne out by we as in cyber media. Now Nielsen has done a survey about a year ago. And they also came to the same thing, that 13% of people had more than one SIM, and most of those had 2 SIMs, and some of them had 3 SIMs or more. Okay, so it's again down to the scenario where 100 people, if you take randomly, will have about 115 SIMs, which we still think is very conservative. But if that's the case, then this 744 million translates into 650 million people. If that figure was a little bit more, and we believe it's actually more, that means you take 100 people and they will have more than 115 SIMs. In that case, you're looking at about 600 million people. So this is interesting because the people part matters. When you look at tele-density, okay, the strict definition says number of connections divided by number of people, and that's tele